Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Cheers to Health. Again, you got to have me, Brian, that fucking bad man, Torres. And, of course, got to have AJ Tomlinson. And, of course, our editor, the man behind the scenes, who pretty much got the new haircut. But anyways, Omar Torres.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so our next guest is Jodi Watkins. She is the person who helped sculpt the person that I am today. One of the mentors of Omar, okay, when it comes to personal training, health and nutrition, all that stuff. Even the little app that you guys use, it wouldn't even been possible if it wasn't for her. So y'all better say
Jodi.
Thank you.
Shout out, Jodi.
Shout out. Yeah. But on top of that, dude, she does a whole bunch of other things. I don't even know how. And I hope whenever we talk to her, people will get inspired, get motivated, kind of push themselves to keep being productive, keep doing things, better themselves each day. And on top of that, there's going to be a lot more things that we can dig into on that. We'll see what we can get out of her. And there she is.
Speaking of Jodi.
Yeah.
How we doing, Jodi?
What's going on? Oh, look at you with the shirt. Okay, I see.
Yeah, I was just,
you did that
I was
on
just
purpose.
explaining them. I did. I was like, I got to rep it. I got to be like, this is what it did mold me into who I am. And, yeah, more confidence
so
on
proud.
the
I'm like
camera
a proud
and stuff.
mama bear.
There you go. Absolutely.
There you go.
Yes.
I made this one. It says I can't even see it now, but where average isn't accepted.
Awesome. Love it. Good deal.
Yeah.
That's the other part of the To Be Epic.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling these guys, I was like, hey, make sure y'all thank her because all these programs and stuff that I'd be putting out for them, it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Jodi.
So shout out, Jodi.
Hey.
Woohoo! Thank you, Jodi.
Hey, I always say, I just plant the seed. It's up to the other people to water them. And that doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. That's health and fitness. That's business. That's whatever is life. I'm like, hey, here's the tools. If you use them, it's up to you. If you don't use them, that's up to you too.
100%.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Because I really had to start doing that. And this is a little tip for anybody out there. I always say I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I would tend to be too kind. And I would bend over backwards for people, but that really sent me into a pretty bad spiral. And, I've dealt with a lot of depression and stuff like that because I really wanted to help people, but you can't help people that don't want to be helped. And 100%. That's one of the things that I've really had to learn. So now I'm just like, hey, here's the seed. You do what you want with it.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. Yes.
Exactly.
So I'm really proud of Omar. It's great to meet you guys. Really proud, just from where he's coming from. It's funny. I had someone that I played basketball with. Unfortunately, she's passed away now. But back we were stationed in England, and she came on my podcast when I first started it, and she said I couldn't even get Jodi to do a Facebook Live. And so that's what I wanted Omar to understand. Like, hey, we all got to start somewhere. There was a time where I would not do videos either. I didn't want to do them.
Yep.
So it's not, it's just practice. That's all it is. Just like everything else we do.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things whenever I started this thing. I was like, dude, we just got to do it. Because there's no way that I'm just going to hop on there and just feel like, comfortable doing things. I'm still, trying to get better. And it's still going to be work.
We're all trying to get better.
Yeah. Every day. And I hope so. That's the whole goal. We always trying to get better. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yes. So for our listeners, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, as in like, what do you do? Because I know you do all these things. I know. They know because I tell them. But there might be
Yeah.
people out there that are not as, informed. So please tell us about yourself.
Well, let's see. My name is Jodi Watkins. We'll start there. I was born Jodi Sherrill. I was born in a small town called Fernandina Beach, Florida, right north of Jacksonville, Florida, which is where I live now. I grew up in a pretty toxic environment, and I ended up homeless at the age of 15. I finished high school and ended up going to college, played basketball, then ended up in the Air Force, did the Air Force for about 15 years. That didn't go to plan, but hey, it's all good. And, I just I think post Air Force was probably the hardest part. Just because not only did I have to figure out my identity, if anybody can relate to that, like, who am I now? But I also, there was just a lot of life things that happened. And then also I needed to face my trauma. I needed to face all the childhood trauma and things like that. So I'm still on that journey. But to tell you a little bit of what I do, I got into nutrition because I was a caregiver for my mom. This is the part that a lot of people don't know. I didn't get into nutrition to achieve a look. I was actually trying to learn how to use nutrition to get my mom off some of her medications. Mm-hmm. So I took pharmacology, I took nutrition, and this was back in 2007. And I took a list to her primary care and I said, hey, I need you to sign off on this. And this was after about a year, because I had to take those classes and do all the research and all that. And she was just like, I knew I brought you back to the States for a reason. so that's how I started in nutrition. My mom had multiple sclerosis, so I had to learn how to, exercise her. She could barely move. There's a lot of things going on. And so I got into group fitness. I had 5 surgeries. So I was a group fitness instructor. I was a Zumba instructor, which a lot of people don't know that either. That's how I started. I was a Zumba instructor. And that was mostly because I took Zumba when I went to physician assistant school when I was in San Antonio, Texas. This was a long time ago. And that I didn't make it through the program. And it was very heart-wrenching because I worked very hard to get into it. And this was after my mom passed away, which is one of the reasons I didn't make it through, because some of the classes I just couldn't even sit in. It was very difficult because I hadn't healed from any of that. And so, I went to a Zumba class. One of my friends, she was like, you're too depressed. We're going to get you out of here. And I went to a Zumba class and I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's happy. We're working hard. I burned like 1,000 calories. This is awesome, right? Yeah. And so when I got back to Georgia, I was still in the Air Force. I got back. We were stationed in Moody Air Force Base in Georgia, and they didn't have a class that was at the time that I could go because the shift that I was working. So I just do what Jodi does. I create it. And so I went and got licensed, and I did a 5:30 a.m. class, and that's how I started. Kind of ended up getting more into group coaching, group fitness and stuff like that, and high intensity classes. I was the not so average Zumba instructor that had everybody doing squats for a whole song, things like that.
Oh, wow.
But what I started realizing was, not so conventional. I'm not very conventional in anything, actually, but, but I started realizing that there was a lot of people that were like me that had a lot of injuries. So I'd had 5 surgeries by that time. And there was a lot of people who, they couldn't do some of the exercises, and the classes had to go so fast that I couldn't really work with them one-on-one to show them, all the modifications and stuff like that, because we were on a time limit. So I got into personal training. I got certified in 2013 as a personal trainer. And it was interesting because that was full circle, because I was a personal trainer, and I'm going to age myself now, in 1998 as well.
There you go.
So it was interesting how I just kind of went completely full circle. And then I got certified as a health coach because I realized that it was more than just exercise and even nutrition at that point. And so I kind of took it from a different standpoint as far as like, hey, let's work on your habits and mindset. And do you really even want to do this? How important is it to you? People that had kids, I taught them how to work out with their kids, because I had to do it. So that's how everything kind of started for me. And then over the last few years, I've kind of learned that I don't have to be limited. And I will say I owe that a lot to Matthew Curran, which Omar knows him. He's the founder of Convene Communities, but he's just an amazing soul. He has been my mentor for the last 4 years. And, you know, I thought that I had to be confined in this little box. That's what society tells us. Like, pick something and stick with it, right? But that was really pulling at me because it was all these other things that I love to do. Like most people don't know, I've been writing since I was 15. I have books that I want to write, multiple. I write ebooks. I write blogs. I do this stuff for fun. I research for fun. Like I'm just that weird person, right? Like that's what I love to do. And so, you know, I love to help people out in the open, but I also love to do these things, you know, for my own well-being. And so, you know, Matt helped me out tremendously and just was like, you know, you don't have to be limited. And so, you know, I realized that a lot of people don't like to write. So he was actually the first person who asked me to write the book for Convene. And that's how the ghostwriting thing kind of started, where he also linked me up with a couple people that needed a writer. And I found out that actually paid a lot more than health coaching did. So,
there you go. Yes.
I was like, So you know, I've just kind of learned that I don't have to be limited. And so now that's what I'm really big about telling other people, like, hey, yeah, it's good to focus, you know, do something, focus on that, and then move on to something else. Don't try to do 50 million things at one time, because I will tell you from personal experience, that's not very good either. But we can time block. So we can work on multiple projects. I'm doing it right now. But, you know, maybe I spend an hour here. Maybe I spend 30 minutes here, right? So when I work with business owners, most of them are parents. Most of them are overwhelmed. Some of them have full-time jobs, right? And I'm like, okay, where can you find? It's the same thing we tell our clients. That's what I told Omar. Where can you find 20, 30 minutes out of your day? And if you can't find it, wake up earlier. How important is it? You know? And that's the biggest thing. It's like we have to figure out how important are these things, because we don't know how long we have here, right? So my biggest thing now is I'm like, you know, I'm going to put everything I have on Convene, because I know, God forbid, if I happen to not wake up one day, that's going to keep going. There's people that will keep it all going. I got courses in there. I got all the stuff in there, all my videos, all my content that I've done for all these years, all the documents, everything. It's all in there. So I'm like, hey, I did my part, right? Like, that's the legacy. Let's go. So I can be okay with whatever happens next, you know? So that's a little bit, I'm doing what I'm kind of doing next now in this season of my life is I've been putting off getting my doctorate. So I just got my GI Bill. Yeah, just got my GI Bill. I actually got the approval today. So I will be going into, it's a doctor of psychological counseling. So it's not a licensed therapist, but it's literally right along the lines of what I already love doing. So I'm finally getting a degree that I'll actually use.
There you go.
And I get to write. Like I said, I'm that weird person that likes to write. And the cool thing about it is when I pitch the dissertation, I get to finish my next 2 books with that dissertation. So it's literally like the more I just kind of pull back and was like, and Omar knows my faith is so much higher, especially when things happen. It's like, when life starts crumbling, I'm like, all right, you're all I got. Where we going, right? Like, and so I've really just had to learn how to kind of pull back from trying to force things, which is what I've done for a really long time. And I'm just like, all right, what am I doing today? And so people will be like, I'm a time management coach. Like I teach people how to time block, right? But now I'm having to teach people, like, you got to plan with flexibility, because you know what? Your plan might not go to plan. And that I know that. And at first it really caused me a lot of anxiety, because I was just like, man, I'm supposed, and then I had to shed like the shame of not getting everything done. Right. And so what I had to do was just learn that I'm not meant to get everything done. I'm only one person. So I have to do what I tell everybody else to do. Prioritize. Okay, where am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? All right, cool. And then I do one thing at a time, you know. But that's the next thing on my plate. I'm getting a life coaching certification right now. which I always say you don't need the paper if you have life, but it is what it is. But it's actually cool. I like learning. I'm a student for life. I'm always wanting to learn. I'm like, there's always more to learn. That's why I tell people, like, you always need a mentor. You always need a coach. Coaches need coaches, right? Because we can always learn from somebody else,
Oh, absolutely.
And if any of us say we know it all or we don't need anybody else, then you might as well be done.
Yep.
I always tell people I'm gonna run away from those people. They tell me they know everything. I'm like, bye.
Yep, exactly. Bye.
So that's a little bit. Yeah. I know that was kind of long winded, but that's a little bit. Like I said, I'm just kind of learning how to go with the flow and let my faith lead wherever it needs to go. And whoever comes into my path, I try to help them. If they don't want to be helped, I have to release them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's interesting you say it like that, because we had a guest on who's a professional wrestler, but he was saying it's like the path of least resistance. If you're going on the right track and you feel like, oh, this is going smooth, this is going well, as in like it's aligning with everything you're doing and you're not trying to force it, then you're probably on the right road, And that's kind of how I felt with training, with my physical therapy, schooling and stuff like that. It's gonna all fall the way it falls. You can't really expect it to happen just like that, because you want to take it all in. Mm-hmm. You want to enjoy the moments as well. You can't just stress yourself over everything all the time. And while you were talking and you were explaining all these things, there was bits and pieces that I was like, I know the boys know or have heard some of this stuff. Like to take the 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes to kind of, focus on the podcast maybe. Mm-hmm. But just something, If we want to do this, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and you're so right though. Like I actually pulled back from my podcast because I did have my hands in a lot of different things, and I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that it got to a point where I was forcing the podcast. And so I was like, okay, that's not it. Right. And so I had to sit back with that too. And I started realizing that I needed to create one brand. Right. And so now I'm rebranding a lot of things actually, but I'm rebranding the podcast because a lot of people didn't know how to look for it. And I love the name. Like it's called Breaking Barriers Now. Like I love the name because I feel like we're always constantly breaking barriers, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem was people couldn't find it. This was the feedback I got. So after, pulling away from it for a few months, I think it was like last week, I was just like, why don't I just put my name on it? Right? So I did. So I put the Instagram page. It's the Jodi Watkins Show, but it's still going to be a storytelling platform, where people can come on, share their stories. I'm really big on that just because I always say people see what they see, but they don't see the backstory. They don't see what got us here. Yeah. We all have one. None of us showed up here without going through something, right? Like I think most everybody I meet, the reason they do what they do is because of what they've gone through, right? If they're following their true north, right? Yeah. But so we do all have a story. So that's the premise behind that. And it's like I said, Matt's been my main mentor, so he's really big about people telling their stories too, and he's helped me tell mine. Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to tell my story had I not been part of that a few years ago. I mean, I'm just really grateful for that encounter. So absolutely. But yeah, exactly. So speaking of podcasts, but it is. I had a client. She had her third child. I'd known her for years. We've been working together for years, and she was like, "Jodi, sometimes I can't even get 10 minutes." And I was like, "Cool, use the 10 minutes. Go take your kids, and then put the kid in the stroller." I had to do all of that. It's like you put the kid in the stroller, go for a walk. There was times I have videos from, especially when we were stationed at Okinawa, Japan for a while. I have videos where my daughter and I were like out in the field flipping tires, and of course she was little back then, so she had a little tire. But you have fun with it, And, I'd have so many people that were like, but I have to, and then with the nutrition, but I have to cook a separate meal for my family. Why? Get them involved. Tell them to cook what they want to cook, right? They don't have to, you don't have to eat what they eat, but get them involved and make it fun. People put too many roadblocks on things, and that's why they don't do it. And I'm just like, no, you gotta find the harmony. I don't even say balance anymore, because I don't even know if there is such thing as balance anymore. But you gotta find like the ebb and flow, right? You gotta find the harmony in all of it. So
it's like that on that that guy Jocko Willink, how he has like a famous clip, how whenever he was leading his SEAL team, whatever, how guys would tell him something bad and be like, "Good, how are you going to get past this now?"
Yes. Like, I always say, don't bring me a problem unless you got a solution. Unless you got some feedback, like you can complain about whatever you want to complain about, but where's your solution? I used to say that when we were in the military. I worked on the flight line. I'm like, hey, don't come with me with all your problems unless we got a solution. We can even work together on the solution, but we at least got to do that. But that's a good point. People just, they complain and they don't want to find a solution. And I know y'all are younger than me, but this generation,
you know what?
I'm just You're like, right. Lord.
And I'm already
I got
at
a 14-year-old
with my kids.
AJ has like a 14-year-old.
We'll be practicing a sport, and he expects to be good at something like this.
Yeah.
And then he messes up. He comes up with excuses. I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear it. Dude, just get better. Just find ways to get better. Let's not come up with excuses. It's okay if you missed it. It's okay if you did this, but let's just work through it. Let's see how you can get better. You're not going to be good right off the bat.
Yeah.
Let's keep working, because people will just like want that quick fix or whatever it is, and that's what happens. I was talking to somebody today.
Pop-Tart
it
world.
was actually one of my bosses. What's that?
It's a Pop-Tart world.
Oh yeah,
in and out Pop-Tart.
But they were talking about how their kid is in a sport. I think it's baseball, and everybody around was just throwing their bats around because they did this or that, but they were cussing their parents out. I was like, dude, no way. Like, what? Just suck it up, get a positive attitude, and find a way to overcome that.
You know what? The parents allow it, some of them.
Yep.
And that's the problem.
Yep.
That's the problem. Because like my daughter, she'll actually be 15 this year. Total teenager. Total. We are in that right now so deep. But I never played volleyball. And I actually coached her in basketball for a long time. So I thought she was going to be a basketball player, right? Well, she kind of gravitated. She was going to this camp and she learned how to play volleyball. And she ended up, now she's really good at it. But I've seen some of the kids that she's around, like she just got out of middle school. And some of those kids, the way they would disrespect their parents, I would be like,
oh yeah,
exactly.
But the parents let them. And I was just like, okay, that's the problem, right? Like the kid, if we don't somewhat discipline them, right? Like we don't have to freaking knock them out. Like I used to get knocked out.
Exactly.
We don't have to do that, but we gotta correct them, right? Like we can't just be letting these kids do whatever they want. And that's the issue, right? It starts there. So what you were saying, if the kids are cussing their parents out, the parents are letting them. Because I'll tell you right now, if mine cusses me out, I don't care how much taller she is than me right now. Let's go. We got to talk.
I can't tell you how many times I would see that whenever I was reffing Little League Wrestling, and just the kids would lose a match and they'd spike their headgear and start screaming at their mom or dad or whoever. And I'm like, dude, like if that was me, my dad would have yoked me up by my ear, took me to the bathroom, lickety split. But I mean, there were moments where like I'd be emotional after losing a match, and you get a little lippy for a second, but my dad would be like, hey, not going to do that. I understand you're upset and stuff, but you're going to sit right here, cool off, and come up whenever you're ready.
Yep, I do that too. Yeah. Yep, that's what I do. I'm like, hey, I get it. I played sports, right? Like I get it. Especially when the refs call bad stuff, like I totally get that. But we can't do anything about them. We can't do anything about the refs. We got to play through it. And that's what I would tell the other girls on the team too, just play through it. Don't let that get to you. Because one of the things that I told my daughter, and I try to keep this in my head, because I always say I'm coaching me when I'm coaching others, right? So I love to coach. I have to keep coaching because I need the help.
You're right. I'm the same.
But one of the things that I told her when she was 9, I tell my clients that I'm like, hey, I'm coaching me. You just get the benefit. Thanks for paying me.
Hey.
No.
Yep.
No, but I told my daughter when she was 9, I said, don't let anybody control your emotions, because as soon as you give them control over your emotions, you give them total control over you.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I have still, I will say right now, I still haven't perfected that completely. But again, it's about planting the seeds, right? I told her that when she was 9. And she's a whole lot better now at not allowing people to get to her. She's got boundaries. She's like, like when people are toxic around her, she's like, okay, I've had enough, right? And she's okay with doing that. And I actually respect it. I'm like, shoot, I need to get better, right? Like, but that's because, that stuff was implemented into her early. And then now, this is another thing where the saying "it takes an army to raise a kid" is really true. So now she has really good coaches, just good people around her that want to see her excel. So, but it does start with the parents. It is hard, I think, to be a parent nowadays. I didn't grow up with all the technology that they have, and so it's a little bit, it's a little bit different. But we just like everything else, we got to find the harmony. We have to find ways to still not allow them to run us over, So
yeah.
Gotta keep going.
You brought up a good point about, falling into, well, I say, don't fall into that trap, because I have 2 boys, and they'll say something, pick on one another. One of them will cry. I'll be like, dude, or one of them will yell. I'm like, dude, don't fall into his trap. He's setting you up. He's winning. He's winning. Don't let him do that. So I hope, because he's not totally understanding, obviously he's gonna keep doing it or whatever. But like you're saying,
they gotta learn the hard way.
That seed. Yeah. But planting that seed and letting him know, like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
awesome. One of the biggest things I've learned, especially as my daughter's gotten older, is she's on a journey too. And so it's really just up to me now to kind of just guide, just like I do. I had a mentor a long time ago, and he said, Jodi, treat your family like your clients. And I didn't really understand what he was talking about at first, but now I get it, because it's like, they're on their own journey too. And so I can't keep pushing, because eventually it's going to push the other direction, right? So, it's finding, like I said, it's just about finding that harmony, but it's with parenting too, and that's why I do more with life stuff, because this is life. We're not just, you're not just what you do. And Omar's not just a personal trainer. I'm not just this or just that, right? AJ, you're not just whatever title you want to put on there. But, we have lives. That's messed up. Hey, I'm an only child, so I'm kind of grateful. But I'm joking. But we have lives. Like, everybody we come in contact has real lives, so we have to understand, and we have to use, the knowledge that we have, the experiences that we have, and become relatable. And so that's like with Omar, I would be like, hey, you got to get on video. Y'all got to get on video, because nobody can tell who you are in a picture. Right? Or maybe they see you working out or whatever, but people, I told him there's 50 million personal trainers out there. How do you stand out?
Absolutely.
And that's what we have to understand. And that's why I'm really big now on doing videos, and, and I share the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Like, there'll be times where I'm having a bad day and I share it now. I wouldn't have done that a few years ago, but I do now, because I know now, I have people message me on the back end, they won't post on the post or whatever usually, but I have people message me on the back end. And I remember one time I had a lady message me out of nowhere, and she was just like, you helped prevent me from committing suicide today. that's deep, right? Like when you,
Yep, absolutely.
and that's why I keep sharing now. And that's why I tell people, you got to talk, you got to speak
Yep.
out. And no matter how hard it is, like I always say, I got my voice taken away when I was a kid because I always got told to shut up, basically, you know, don't talk about anything that's happening at home. Don't, you know, whatever. And then I went in the military and it was shut up and color for a little while until I got enough rank. Now I could say whatever I want. But, but it's like, you know, we get taught these things, but we don't have to be quiet. You know, we don't have to just shut up and color anymore. And so now I'm just like, hey, this is who I am. This is what you get. If you like it, cool. If you don't like it, cool. And we'll move on. You know?
Yep, absolutely.
But it took me a really long time to get here. So now I'm just like, hey, to the next generation, y'all don't have to wait this long.
Yep.
Do it early on if you can.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things about having this podcast is because we don't want it to seem like we're these perfect beings. Like, yeah, we're going to have flaws. We're going to miss days in the gym due to whatever it is.
Yep.
But it's okay as long as we get back on track. And Brian hit on this a little bit the other day. And yeah, we're going to have those days.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
as long as, you know, we keep working each day to get better in some kind of way, we're good. We're good. Don't stress about the small
consistency.
things.
It's consistency. That's how I tell people. And I've had a tough couple months on the personal side of things, which does affect everything else that you're doing, right? Like when the personal stuff starts getting to be a lot, it will definitely affect, you know, what you're doing on the outside. And that's when we have to give ourselves some grace, but it's about consistency. So, I mean, yeah, there was days that I didn't even show up for myself, right? And I'm coaching on this stuff, but it just kind of would take me out that much. And I will say, I told somebody yesterday, I told a friend of mine yesterday, I said, well, I know I'm progressing because I don't sit in it as long as I used to. So that's the progression part, right? Like, I've been depressed for a month before. Like, hey, I only did like half a day. I'm good. And that's you know, the small wins, that's what it is. You know, that's what it is. But we tend to still get down on, well, I didn't get this or that done, or I didn't go to the gym, or, oh crap, you know, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Okay, well, you can't take that back, right? So give yourself some grace. It was one of those days. Tomorrow, right? And like I told one of my clients, I said it starts the night before, right? It's what we do the night before. And that's what I told Omar, like, I've been trying to get to bed a little bit earlier. And this is late for me. So, but that's why I told him a while back, because I was trying to get kind of back on track, you know, because I was just like, man, my schedule was just kind of all over the place for a little bit. So it always starts the night before. But when I get intentional the night before, when I'm like, okay, I'm going to wind down around this time, I read a book, I put the technology away, right? Like when I do those things, I sleep better, which allows me to get up. And then that allows me to, you know, go to the gym or do what I need to do. And then the day just ends up better because I feel better, right? But it started the night before. And that's the big thing that people have to understand. It's not about just getting up that next day. It's like, okay, fine. Like, say today was one of those days for me. All right, well, I can't do anything about that. I'm going to give myself some grace. I did the best I could with what I had today. Now I'm going to get a good night's sleep. What am I going to do that? All right, let's figure this out. All right, get my gym clothes out for tomorrow. Get my tennis shoes out. Put my water out. I make sure everything's already there. I have no excuse at that point. Right? Clean up after yourself. Like when I was waiting on y'all, I was like, well, I got a few minutes. I'm going to go wash the dishes, right? Like, get everything done. That way you don't have to worry about it, you know, and then just get back on track. And yeah, you're going to fall out. People are going to fall out. I've had 9 surgeries now. As I told you, if I relied on working out, I'd be in trouble. I still have 6 bulging discs and I got a visco shot in my knee today, right? Like, but they did tell me I didn't have to worry about my activity. So I ended up doing some really great deadlifts today. But you know, it's just progression. And yeah, since we're on that topic, speaking of working with somebody that I always say I try to find people smarter than me, I ended up coming across a physical therapist who actually helped me get back into deadlifts, because I have my chiropractor has said I shouldn't do them anymore and I shouldn't put any weight on my back anymore. and all these things, right? So we have to be careful with who we're listening to. It didn't make sense to me though. And when I say, when things don't make sense to me, for anybody that knows me, I will make it make sense. I will try to find a way to make it make sense, which is why I research so much. So I ended up coming in contact with this physical therapist, and she actually focuses on bodybuilders and powerlifters for the most part, veterans, mostly veterans, things like that. So most of us are pretty beat up, right? So she helps them get back. So when I first started working with her, and this was only maybe 6 months ago, I was struggling with like 135 on the deadlift. Well, today I got to 230. But I don't ego lift anymore either. So I did take video, and it's on the Instagram, the To Be Epic Instagram page. But I don't ego lift anymore. So I did the one. And I actually, I tried. I was like, nah, I got another one in me. And I went and I felt it just a little bit, and I dropped it. I was like, nope, nope. I got to be happy with that one. And I went and finished my workout, because that's the thing too. People go too quick, too far, and then they end up hurting themselves. They can't finish their workout. They can't go back tomorrow. So I actually have a course, and in the course, one of the modules is about exercise. And one of the lessons is, I named it Lift to See Another Day.
Oh, nice.
Because we have to be smart.
Nice.
We got to be smart.
I like that.
And the older I get, I have to be really careful. I got injuries and things like that. So, but yeah, I was really happy about that. So that's my small win for today. Feels like a big win though.
No, that's
I was so happy.
Yeah.
It's funny, about a month. I think it was about a month ago. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm back to the 200 club." It's been years.
There you go.
I think back when I was doing bodybuilding, I got up to I think 285, and then I did a powerlifting meet, and that's when I had my other knee problems and things like that, and so then it just kind of trickled from there. So it's
now
been
we're back on track
since I've been able to do that. Yeah. So, but it's slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly.
And that's everything.
That's
business, life, health, tracking your food.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it is.
Exactly. That's what I try to not tell people is like, nah, you're not going to be able to do that. Sorry. Like this isn't, nah, you're not.
Never
I heard
that.
somebody say this. And I look, cause we work at the Y. And this other trainer was training this other trainer and told that trainer, yeah, you can't do pull-ups. Just forget about it. Don't try to do a pull-up again. And I was like, what? I didn't say anything, but I was like,
hey, man, you suck. What? Just quit.
Right?
I'm going to say this real quick, and it's no offense to anybody out there, but when I got my personal trainer certification, I had to go through a class. In person. Lots of these trainers get the certification, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the knowledge. I see it all the time. And sometimes I'm just like, why are you training that person? But we can't say anything. But I also see good trainers. And when I see the good trainers, I'm like, I commend them, right? Because they're actually doing what they need to be doing. But yeah, we see it all the time. And that's why, people will be like, why don't you just go train over here? Well, first off, that's not my main thing anymore. Second of all, I want to choose who I train. And the third thing is people would get on my nerves.
Valid.
And some of them don't want to listen to anybody. They think they know it all, and so I'm just like, but I did it's funny. I had one of the trainers at one of the local gyms here. I let him train me because he's really good. And one day I was like, I'll let you train me. And, there was a couple of things I was like, you might want to, so I was kind of mentoring him while he was training me. But that was really good. So I like to have fun with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what I tell my clients too. I tell them, hey, we're going to work together. I'm going to teach you things, and then I'm probably going to be learning things from you. I don't know everything. And the same thing you were saying before, it's like, we're going to be coaching each other pretty much. Like,
and we should be. We should be. And, it's funny. I have one of my clients from golly years ago. Well, I keep in touch with a lot of them actually from like when I first started. You know you're doing a good job. You know you've done a good job when they keep going. I always tell people, I'm like, you should not need me forever. Like, I'll be around, you know, if you need to hit me up, you need, you know, need some encouragement, obviously, right? But you should not need a coach all the time. You know, it's good to have people in your corner that keep you going. And maybe you do have different coaches in different areas. I do have coaches, but you shouldn't need them all the time. At some point, if they're doing their job right, you should be able to take the information they're giving you and teach other people, which is what I'm able to do now with even just business funding. And I just learned that in the last couple of years. That was something I never imagined. Being able, my business ended up with 6 figures, and I was able to go into real estate investing as an LLC. You know, these are things could not have taught anybody. But now that I'm doing it, you know, I still send them to the expert, but I can at least get them started, right? I'm like, okay, here's some things you can do on the front end, and then, you know, go to the expert after that, because that's out of my reach. But that's the thing. If we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we should be able to grasp the information. Your clients, everybody should be able to take the information we're giving them and keep going with it for the rest of their lives. You know, but that's up to them. They have to make that choice. So we can't make that choice for them.
That is the biggest thing. They have to.
It is.
It's like anything else. They gotta want to do it. They can't just go in there like, oh, shoot, dude, I gotta go do this. Because they're not gonna get anything stuck in their brain. They're just gonna think about the session being over or whatever it is.
I'm gonna go back on you on that real quick, because I did have a client. I've had a couple of them actually, probably a few. I've trained a lot of people, but I know one stands out to me in particular when I was in Japan, and she didn't like to come to her sessions, but you know what? She still paid for them, and she still showed up. And so as long as she showed up, I mean, it was. I'll be honest with you, I was more her therapist than her trainer. You know, like that was her vent session. Valid. It was her lunch break. She was venting, but you know what? She still had to move while she was venting. And so that was the thing where, you know, we not everybody's going to like it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But if they, and honestly, even if they pay for it, that's not the respectable part. The respectable part is when they show up. I could care less about anything else, but you're here, right? Like that's when I do group coaching calls and stuff like that. Like the people that show up, I'm like, hey, you showed up for you, right? So your clients are still showing up for themselves, even though they don't want to. It's like taking a kid to school, right? Like the kids don't want to go to school, but they got to show up, right? It's no different. But when they keep going, the more they do it, right? Like there's a book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he was talking about the guy that went into the gym, right? He would walk to the door. He would do, there you go. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Okay. I'm in good company. All right. AJ's like, oh crap.
I don't, I'm illiterate. No, I'm just kidding.
But hey, it's on audiobook. But anyway, when y'all see it, then when he talks about the guy that goes in, he just goes to the gym every day and he walks on the treadmill for 5 minutes and he leaves every day. 5 minutes every day, leaves, right? But you know what? He's already done a lot more than a lot of people will do. I know people that won't even walk to the gym door, right? Yep. And then if they do walk to the gym door, they turn around and leave. So I'm like, if you can get up to the point where you walk in the gym door, go through the entrance, and then do something for like 10 minutes, you've made progress, right? But that's what the guy on the treadmill did. He would go every day for 5, but that was because he needed to instill the habit, right? Yep. One of the things that I'm learning on the mental health side of things is we have a lot of habits that are just instilled in us. And some of this stuff is genetic. You know, I'm learning that right now. And, you know, when it's generational, that's even harder to break. But that's why it's so important, the people we have around us, because we don't always see our weaknesses. I learn about my weaknesses when I work with people like Omar and the other trainers, right? Like y'all would say stuff and I'd be like, oh crap, I didn't think about that, right? So I learn about my weaknesses when I have people around me who are willing to give me feedback. And,
Yes.
and that's why I'm always asking for feedback, right?
Mhm.
So on the mental health side of things is still habits. Like I'm having to intentionally think a certain way so I don't think the other way that hasn't been serving me my whole life. Right?
Absolutely.
That's
Love
hard.
that.
It's basically when
Yes.
I talk to computer people, I'm like, you're rewriting a code. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yes.
I did electronics. So if anybody's out there, if they're in this field, you understand what I'm saying. But it's like literally there's binary code, right? It might be a 1 and a 0 that day, and that's all you're gonna get. Right? And maybe the next day
I don't know what that means, but yeah.
couple more. And so it's literally we're rewriting codes. So even in exercise, if somebody hasn't exercised, right, or maybe they just haven't done it in a long time, they have to retrain their brains. And Dr. Joe Dispenza they did a bunch of studies that after the age of 35, it takes even longer because it's so hardwired at that point. Then that's just the average, There's always people on the other side of that. But, so if we think about that, as long as people are showing up, we have to keep encouraging them, because I would be a little upset if like I went to my therapist one day and she was just like, oh, you suck, or you didn't do that. Right. Like, no,
right.
I showed up.
You're not saying enough. You're not saying anything.
And this is some hardcore stuff. Like, I don't even know if I want to show up, but I'm still here. Like, I'm going to tell you, there's some days where I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do this. But I have to think about what I tell my clients. And, like if we're going to get better, if we're going to grow, if we're going to become the best possible version of ourselves, we have to do the hard stuff. So we pick the thing that's hard that we don't want to do. And if we know that that'll progress us forward, we do it anyway. We do it hard. We do it disgruntled. We do it, right? We do it however we need to do it as long as we do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I find it a whole lot more like easier to respect somebody whenever like you're talking to them and they're like, oh yeah, I go to the gym and I do this and this pretty easily. I'm like, what? But then you talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, I have a hard time doing this and this and this, but they still go every day. That's a lot more respectable than option A, that dickhead, whoever that might be. Because the other guy, he keeps going back every day and he's trying to get better and he's being honest about it. He's not like, got a chip on his shoulder. And that's just like something that Brian needs to learn is just like be more humble.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. You said Brian needs to learn. That's funny. I don't know y'all that well, but I know Omar talked about y'all. So
Time out. Well, because something I want to go back on is Jodi saying something that I feel like it touched me because I deal with a lot of depression and anxiety as well. So I was really happy to hear whenever you said that your bad days and have gotten shorter. Instead of it being a month or whatever it might be, it's now taking half of a day or whatever. And just like same here, it used to take me a whole lot longer, but now I'm able to make it shorter. And I just, what is something that you would what kind of advice would you give somebody who is kind of dealing with the same thing, where we can be so consistent for a while and then for whatever reason we just get knocked off? And how do we make that shorter or as less as possible? What would you tell somebody for that?
Everything's a choice. I mean, literally, I'm in that right now, right? Like where I'm having to make hard choices. I went to the gym at like 4:00 p.m. today when I usually go in the morning. I could have just not went though, right?
Yeah.
And then that other win wouldn't happen. So it's just about making choices. Whatever we're in, we will get out of it, right? We have to go through. I have a good friend. She reminds me of this. We have to go through. We can't leap over it. We can't hide from it. That's survival mode, fight or flight, right? Like we want to run from it. We want to hide from it. We want to fight it if we can. So we have to be careful with that and just understand. Like I said, the big thing is giving ourselves grace. Like I got diagnosed with PTSD, chronic depression, and anxiety, right? I have it. It's there. It's programmed, right? So every day, if I wake up and my thoughts start spiraling, I'm like, oh my God, I got to put something on. I got to listen, right? Like I got to get out of that. And so it's really the self-awareness. It's the choice from the self-awareness. We have to be self-aware. we have to be able to notice when we're, like I say, I create the rabbit hole and I'll jump in it and go as far down as I can go. But now I create it still. I'm still creating it. I'm getting better, but I'm still creating it. I create it still, but I don't go down too far to where I can't climb back out in a shorter period of time. Right. So that's that. I'm a visual person. So I try to give people visuals. So if you think about like, you know, and anybody that's out there that deals with anxiety, and that's who I coach now, is people with anxiety and depression, because hey, we're in the same boat, right? But you know, anybody that deals with that, just understand you got to give yourself some grace. You're going through things that not everybody's going to understand, and that's something else I had to learn. A lot of people are going to misunderstand me. People close to me are going to misunderstand me, right? My own kid misunderstands me, right? But this is who I was created to be. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. I can filter that and make it positive, right? So, okay, yeah, I have this anxiety, but what am I worrying about that I don't have to worry about? Like, I did it today. I was like thinking of all these scenarios that could happen, but I had just coached somebody on that yesterday and said, why do we create the scenarios that aren't even going to happen? So it's really just the self-awareness we have. So now I'm like, okay, I just said that yesterday and I'm doing the same thing. Yeah, so it's a self-awareness. But you're not alone. And that's another big thing that I'm trying to get, you know, that's why I speak outwardly on this stuff a lot now, because I'm like, hey, we will suffer in silence because we think we're alone. That's why we have suicide, right? Because we're meant to be around people. We're meant to have people that we can talk to. The problem is a lot of us have trust issues, right? Like I didn't trust anybody. So how am I going to develop these relationships if I have trust issues? Right? So it takes people being willing to also help you through that. You know, like, okay, I know these people did you wrong, but that doesn't mean everybody's gonna do you wrong, right? You still gotta open the door and let people in. You don't have to they don't have to stay there, right? But you can at least open the door and let them in, and then observe. Right now I'm really big on observing. I talk less. I'm talking a lot now, but that's because y'all got me on here. But I talk less now and I listen more, because people are going to tell me what kind of person they are and they won't even know. You know what I'm saying?
I learned that from you.
So
I learned that from you.
That's and well, I had to learn it too, though, right? And that's what I was talking about. You teach the next person. But so anybody that's dealing with that, I would just say definitely be self-aware. When do you start spiraling? What causes that? For me, sometimes noises. There's certain noises, like if I become president, I'm banning leaf blowers. Okay? I'm just going to say that out loud. For some reason, they drive me insane. And this has only been over the last couple of years. It's pretty crazy, but there's research out there that says when you start healing from your trauma and certain noises that never bothered you before, all of a sudden, because somewhere, this is just the studies that have been done. Somewhere in there, and you know, in that area that has those memories, there was some trauma with that noise. So I don't know where mine came from. I know potentially where it could have came from, but it's part of the healing process. But yeah, so there's certain noises that just drive me insane now. But if I can plan for them, right? Like if I see somebody with a leaf blower, they don't have it on yet, but I see them, I'm like, okay, I need to prepare myself, right? I only have the problem when it's like random and sudden and I'm like, right? But then I have headphones. So again, it's the self-awareness. Like, okay, now I know that noise drives me insane now. So what can I do? I have noise canceling headphones now. I'll put them in and I will cancel it out, right? So it's the self-awareness and the choices that matter. I can either sit in it or I can, you know, it's just like we said earlier. It's like we can complain about it or we can do something about it, right? It's like I can sit in it or I can at least go for a walk and get moving or something and just try to get myself out of it, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not 100%. And we are going to have days where it just seems like we can't even function. And again, that's where we have to give ourselves grace. Sometimes we need to rest.
Yep.
You know,
that's a big thing.
So
I
I
just
have a-
started learning myself is give myself grace, because I would get so worked up on and be so hard on myself about the whole situation that it would just, go deeper and dive into that vicious cycle, instead of just taking that step back, but it's okay, give yourself grace, and then, be back at it the next day. So that's really cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. We tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and I'm the queen of it. I'm used to being in control of things. I was always the protector, and so I was just so used to figuring it out. And so when I couldn't figure it out, I would put a lot of pressure on myself. But I need to figure this out, right? Well, not everything has to be figured out in our time, right? Like we don't have to figure it out as much as we think we do, because sometimes it's going to work itself out. We just have to let it get there, right? And that's hard because that takes patience. It takes patience, and that's something else I struggle with. but that's the thing that I tell people too. I'm like, if I can do this, anybody can. There's absolutely nobody that can't do anything that I'm doing. It's just a choice. If I chose not to trust anyone, I wouldn't have come in contact with Matt Curran or my best friend, Denise Armstrong, who were helping people become freaking wealthier. Like, you couldn't have told me this stuff, right? But if I had not opened the door, and I'll say out of probably 20 people, those are the only 2 that stayed in, right? But we have to at least open the door. Like, it's that saying, you miss 100 shots that you don't take.
Yep.
Right? Like, you got to take the shot. Then you got to take the shot. I don't care if you miss it. And I played basketball, so that was, that's a perfect analogy. I knew that one. Right? Like, I'm like, oh, yeah. Because like, maybe you miss, but maybe you don't.
There you go.
And
you don't know.
But we have to take the chance. And so, when we're dealing with, especially the mental health. And I'm really big on this now, because we can see physical changes, but we can't see mental changes, right?
Yep.
So we have to know that we're getting better. We have to tell ourselves that we're getting better, because we're not going to see it in the mirror. It's not something we can take a transformation picture, right? So that's something else where people will get down on themselves. And I'm like, why are you feeling down on yourself right now? Like, think about the progress you've made. And I have to do the same thing, because I can easily get down on myself too. And then I just have to remember and, okay, but I have made progress, it's not as bad. But it's also, that's why community is so important. Having like my family right now, they're not blood, but they're like my sisters, and they will run after me, and they were here on my birthday, and I was like, no, I just want to stay home and be alone. And they came anyway, right? Like, those are the kind of people we need around us. And if we have those type of people, we can't fail. And I always say it's not failure until you quit,
Yes.
So we're going to have to shift. I mean, I'm shifting things right now. I'm like, this doesn't even make sense to me, but I'm going to do it because that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. I'm shifting everything right now. And I'm just like, what are we doing? But we're gonna have to shift, but we don't quit. I had somebody tell me not too long ago, this was actually one of my troops from like however long ago, 20 some odd years ago. He said, one of the things that I always admired about you is you didn't quit. And I was just like, you're right. I don't.
There you go.
People quit on me. People quit on me all the time. But that doesn't mean I have to quit.
There you go.
It's just like when people go to the gym and they have a gym partner and that gym partner quits. I don't mean you got to quit.
Yep. You got to keep it pushing. Life's a garden. Dig it,
There you go.
I like that one. That was good. Don't give him a hard time. That was pretty good.
Look, I always say this all the time. Joe Dirt is actually probably one of the most inspirational movies you can watch.
Look at that.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. He's
That's
also
so funny. AJ, you're the youngest, right?
Yes, I am.
Is he the youngest?
Little bitty boy.
And the strongest.
Y'all are funny.
Okay, calm down. Calm down. But you brought up something that was something that I've been wondering even whenever I talk to Brian, because he has things that I don't really understand. But you also
Don't
brought
try
something
to.
else up where
Yeah, don't.
no, that's exactly what I'm getting to. You also said you don't want to feel like you're alone. But how can somebody that doesn't know or doesn't understand where they're coming from how do you approach them? Like, hey man, like it's gonna be
You just
okay.
do it. You do it in love. You do it. You do it. Y'all are brothers. If he doesn't know you love him, that's a problem, right? Like you just do it. Like I tell people now, I'm like, half the time I can't even explain what's going on in my head. If I'm in it, right? And Brian, you can probably relate to this. Like, so I can't explain to you. I don't know what I need right now, but something is driving me insane, and I just need that to be okay, right?
Yep.
And so I would just tell people like, hey, just give me a hug. Like, I don't know how guys do it, but I like hugs. I didn't get them when I was younger, and I like them. I enjoy them now, right? Like, and if it's coming from a good place, like I said, like the two women that I call my sisters right now, like one, she's an Air Force veteran, and the other one, she's just an amazing person. But they came after me when I said, no, I don't want anything. They came anyway. One drove across town 45 minutes, right? They didn't have to do that. So when people get to know you, and even if they don't understand, nobody's going to understand Omar, you can't understand what's in his head. You're not him, right? You can't understand it. Just like he can't understand what's in your head. We can try to explain it until we're blue in the face, but sometimes we can't, right? So we just have to be there, and maybe he doesn't want to talk. Maybe he just needs to know you're there. Hey, put your hand on his shoulder. Hey, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, man. Hold me like a baby.
Sometimes I need that reminder, like, hey, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Yeah. And I take a couple deep breaths, because if you're not doing breath work, you better get on it. I take a couple deep breaths, and you have to. But and then I'm okay, So the one thing I tell people, if you're in that, if you're in a relationship, family, whatever, if you have somebody with anxiety, the biggest thing is just let them know you're supporting them. You're there. We're not trying to fix the problem. Sometimes it's not fixable. Sometimes I just need to know you're there. Like I got even a couple of coaches. I'm like, hey, I don't need you to coach me today. I just need you to hear me.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. That's awesome. There you go, dude. Hey, I'm here. Okay?
Did I help you out, Brian?
That's all I needed to hear, man. That's all I needed to hear, brother.
Right
AJ,
here.
where you at? I don't hear you. That's all I needed to hear, man.
Oh, yeah. Look at them. He's right there, dude. He's like across the street. That's awesome. Hey,
awesome.
Man,
that's Jodi.
That's
really
some good stuff
it really
right there.
Out tremendously, even for me. I felt like I was, just taking in a lot and just really understanding it a little bit, because I feel like I'm still learning sometimes. Like I said, I feel like I'm learning on my own to some degree. I recently just started seeing a counselor about it, but everything that she's telling me, I've been doing just subconsciously, But again, it's just learning about it and just being self-aware, like you said, and then giving yourself that grace.
It's just tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just tools. I got one of my clients, because I've been through. There's one called EMDR. So I'm going to talk about this in one of the books. I'm writing a book called Overcome the Enemy Within. So this will be in there. And then I'm doing one right now called Neuro-Emotional Technique. And that uses your body to tell the story, which that's really interesting. So in EMDR, I found out that my trauma, as far as like abandonment and stuff like that, started when I was 3. Now I'm finding out it was like in the womb.
Oh, wow.
So, so there's a lot of things that we don't even know are there. And we have to just be open. We're all still learning. Brian, I don't have all the answers, I promise you. Right?
Yeah, you and me
Most
both.
of the stuff, the only reason I'm able to coach people on this stuff is because I've been in it longer, right? Like I started this process longer, you know. It's just like personal training, right? Like I've just been doing it longer. Nutrition, like all of it, right? I've just been doing it longer. I know how to track. I can track my foods like in 5 minutes now because I've been doing it for however many years, right? I told one of my clients, I was like, I used to have to write stuff down in a notebook. We got apps now.
Yep.
Exactly.
So, you know, so we're all still learning and growing, and we just have to, as I said earlier, we just have to take the same advice we give other people in different areas of their lives. You know, we have to take that and bring it into our personal lives, our businesses, our families, all the things around us, our friends, the people that are, you know, reciprocating that, you know that they're always going to have your back. We have to understand that we are created different, and that's a good thing. But we can use those differences to help people in ways we didn't even know. You know, like I'm telling you, you could not have told me I'd be coaching on this level right now. You couldn't have told me that. I was just a personal trainer in the gym. But I had to allow for it, you know, and I had to understand that my calling was bigger than what I was doing in the gym. That was really difficult for me to pull away from personal training. You know, I'm still certified, but I'm not doing it. But that was difficult. But I started realizing, I was like, wait, I can mentor other personal trainers. I can, you know, help people in different areas of life. You know, because especially people that got anxiety and are overwhelmed, that goes into every area of life, fitness, business, all of it, right? Yeah. So it's just taking everything, all of our experiences, and being able to coach on that to a massive level. So, Brian, don't think your anxiety is a bad thing. There's a lot of people with it, you know, and you can help a lot of people. Yeah. And you just got to keep going. And you help them while you're helping yourself. That's what I'm doing. I'm helping people while I'm still in it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and that's where that imposter syndrome, I have a blog that I wrote on imposter syndrome a long time ago. You know, we have to understand that we can do these things. You know, everybody wants to wait until this time or that time. Or I texted Omar earlier today and I said, there's never going to be a perfect time. I can do it tonight. Right?
There you go. There you go. Absolutely.
There's never going to be a perfect time. So whatever it is for anybody out there listening, whatever it is that you want to do, there's no perfect time. If you wait, something else is going to come up. And I know that all too well. Right? So just do what you can when you can and, you know, be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. That's oh my goodness.
And it's just like working out with your mental health, man. You got to practice it. You got to do it and be consistent with it as well.
There we go.
I literally, yes, that's exactly what I had to do. And it's funny here. I'm gonna tell you something real quick because I work with business owners now, right? And so like they don't want to track their foods. This is the biggest thing with people. They don't want to track their foods. And I'm like, wait, you have a successful business. I bet you track your KPIs. I bet you track your finances. I bet you do. Why can't you just take that over in this other little area in your phone and put your food in?
That's right.
I don't know nothing about tracking
so
all
we
that.
literally have to use things against people.
What'd you say, AJ?
I don't know anything about tracking those KPIs and all that crazy stuff, but I bet tracking food is a lot easier than that stuff.
To me, it is. But you know, if we're on this side of it, right? Like I was tracking my food before I had to track anything else. You know, if we're on this side of it, it's easy to say that. But that's what I tell people because I'm like, well, but how did you get good at that? We talked about it earlier. We practice, right? So, okay, now practice is other thing. It's no different.
Bam.
Yeah, never stop learning, just like we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Always learning something. Keep it moving.
Yeah, we should be.
Exactly.
I always say I'm a student for life.
I was going to say, speaking of learning, we're going to have you back on if you're down to talk more about Convene, because that's a whole nother world where, dude, more people need to get on there.
Oh man,
and we need to do things.
I don't even know how I became Matt's number. Well, I don't want to take Eugene out, but I'm still number 2. I'll say female number 1. Okay, Matt has literally. I got so good at it. I think for me, and I'm gonna make sure I backtrack a little bit. I don't desire to use social media that much. I'm an educator. I would rather do YouTube videos. I want to respond to people in a YouTube video. They might not want it, but that's what I want to do, right? and so when Convene came about, I didn't understand it for the longest, but I kept showing up. Same thing. Kept showing up. I don't understand what the heck we're doing, but I'm gonna keep showing up because y'all are good people. And honestly, that's the only thing I was looking at that time. Like, I need people like y'all in my life. I knew they existed. Thank you. Right? Like, and I just kept showing up, and now, like, I know there's some really stuff. And I'm going to tell you something. You want to see somebody with some grit? I have nothing on Matthew Kern. That man is working a full-time job and building this massive thing that we don't even see what's going on in the background, right?
Wow.
So that's what I needed to be around. I needed somebody around me that had so much drive, and I didn't have that before him. I needed somebody around me that had so much drive that it didn't matter how many no's they got. They knew that was their calling.
There you go.
That's him. He has been told no so many times. And so instead of me getting frustrated when people would be like, no. I mean, because we should have way more people on there than we do right now. But people just don't grasp the concept of actual engagement, right? Because again, we live in that Pop-Tart world, instant gratification, right? So, but yeah, we'll more. It's gonna be really good here soon. So, I mean, it's already good, but it's going to be really good. All my coaching is in there now. So, affiliates, if y'all have an affiliate link, y'all want to send people, I got courses, I got stuff, y'all get paid on the back end. So,
there you
throw
go.
that out there. My shameless plug.
Yes. Hey. And yeah, I'm gonna put your stuff on the description and whatnot. But was there anything specific you want to shout out with your books and stuff like that? Because I know you be doing everything. Sheesh.
Well, a lot of people don't know I got really screwed over with the first book, and that it kind of took me out. It really did, because that was my first book, right? Like, I've been a writer, but that was my first published book.
Yeah.
But some things happened on the back end. But again, with Convene, like, I met, Brenda Warren. She's been helping me out a lot. So we decided, it was funny. She and I hadn't talked, and we both ended up coming up with the fact that it needed a new name. And I had already changed my community name at that point. So it's called Step Into Your Greatness. And I said, that's the next book.
There you go.
So the next book is Step Into Your Greatness. It's going to be kind of a version 2 of Reclaim Your Life. Better, because I've been through a lot more now, and I can talk from a different kind of standpoint or whatever. So that's going to be the next one. And then I got Overcome the Enemy Within will be after that. I'm actually ghostwriting a book for someone too. So I'm actually writing someone else's book right now too.
Look at you go. Yeah. Awesome. That's so cool. Good for you.
That's
good
awesome.
job. Yeah.
See that? I keep telling these guys, I'm like, yo, I have to keep doing things. See what Jodi's doing, dude. I ain't got nothing. Let's keep doing things. I failed forward
fast. If you want to see.
Hey.
But again, that's where that grit, that's where that, I've never been a quitter. If I was going to quit, I would have quit a long time ago. And so I'm like, okay, even as close as I've gotten close. But I don't have it in me. If it's something that I feel in my heart, this is what I was meant to do, I can't quit on that.
There you go.
Now there's some things that I do realize now that were distractions, right? And that's the difference. It's like, okay, we can we can understand, okay, what are distractions and what are pushing the needle forward, right? And that's where we have to kind of sit still, because if we're just going, we never figure this out. That was me. But when I actually like pulled back and didn't try to figure it all out, I understood that there was some things that I was doing that were distractions. They took a lot of time away from me. Yep. And even though I like doing them, right, what's going to leave the bigger impact?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that's where my decisions take place. I'm like, okay, you know, this woman over here, I've known her for a long time, amazing woman. Her dementia is getting a little bit worse. Okay, we got to get this book written, right?
Yep.
That's a legacy she gets to leave behind. So now I'm like, okay, what can I put my hands on that is going to create the best impact? You know, like even the real estate investing, we're creating impact on the community and other communities, because it's not just here in Jacksonville, right? Like we're offering affordable luxury housing to people that normally wouldn't be able to buy a house, you know, and I'm from here, so I know that community. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, Convene, what can leave the biggest impact? I can do social media videos all day long, but is that really leaving an impact on people? Like, are people still going to be watching those 10 years from now?
Good point.
Probably not. Right? Mm-hmm. So what's the most impact? Well, I can take that same time and I can move it over here and I can create lessons and courses and educate people and just let them take it from there. Yep. That's the impact.
Absolutely.
So that's where my decisions have to take place now, because it is easy to get really busy and distracted and trying to do, especially when we need money, right? Been there, right?
Yeah.
But we have to understand that sometimes if we just take that same amount of time and put it over in this other thing, the impact is going to be so much greater than the peddly little money we were making on the side over here.
Yep.
And I'm learning that now.
There you go.
Yes.
And thank you so much for being around Omar, because it's rubbed off. It has, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
He has shifted into another gear that I haven't seen ever, honestly. And I mean, it's exciting for me because now it's kind of coming towards me. So I do appreciate that. You know, it's very contagious. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Told these guys.
And to say, you know, we were talking about showing up. Omar kept showing up.
There you
How
go,
many
Omar.
people did we have, Omar? Probably like 14 or 15.
Ooh. Yeah.
One stayed.
Oh yeah. And that goes back to the people expect the quick fix or whatever it is. I was trying to understand and take in all the value behind it, and I appreciate that because I definitely have, and I still am.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And hey, the podcast is on Convene. We're going to be putting some stuff on there. And like you said, it's interactive. So it's better to, go on there, put some stuff on there.
Yeah. Well, and if you put this podcast in there, right, like you can make me a co-author, and then when people, have questions or write stuff, like we can all respond. And then you get your guests on there. And that's one of the things I didn't know that I could do a long time ago, but now I know. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Where it's like, hey, but that way, like they can see it on YouTube and all that stuff, but where can you really have the interaction? Where can you access that person?
Yep.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jodi.
Thank you, Jodi.
That was awesome.
Thank you for
super cool hearing your story.
Oh, thank you for taking your time.
That was like one little piece of it.
Yeah.
But everybody's going to want some more.
Yep.
And they know where to go, Convene.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll get you back on here and talk more about that. But,
absolutely.
Yeah,
hey,
for sure.
Cheers to health.
Cheers to health.
Oh, I got my water here. Cheers to health. Speaking of health.
Yeah. Make sure you're hydrated.
Yes.
Appreciate you.